dress up as a dog and you identify as a dog, and you're a furry, am I doing you a favor by pretending that you're a dog? I'm indulging in your mental illness, but you have an obligation to treat them that way. Okay, so if you're anorexic and you come in here and you're weighing like 60 pounds, am I under an obligation to tell you that you're beautiful because despite the fact that you have incredible health problems, am I under an obligation to tell you you identify as beautiful because you weigh 60 pounds? You are beautiful then. And then when you die, am I then obligated to go to your funeral and say that you're alive? I guess it is a valid question. Is it you? I'm not sure what the it is to which we're referring just yet. But if there's a situation, if there's a problem, I guess there's a good question. Is it you? And I wonder if we ask that question in a good enough way. What I mean by that is, have you ever been in a situation you've asked yourself, like, is this situation my fault? And that's a good question to ask for the future. It doesn't really help you right now. So think about some situation. It doesn't even matter what it is. It could be something that really is your fault. Like, you get drunk and you drive and you crash your car and you kill somebody. Is this my fault? Yeah, it's not the fault of the road. Of course it's your fault. My parents are divorcing. Is this my fault? No, of course it's not your fault. In both of those cases, though, the it is already done. Now the question is, how are you going to respond to it? And so whether or not something is your fault, that's a good thing for the future. So maybe when you get out of jail, you decide not to drink and drive anymore. But in the case of parents divorcing, there's probably nothing that you could have done, especially as a kid, even if we try to take on some level of responsibility. And it's not a bad thing to take on that level of responsibility when we can make it constructive, meaning, what could I have done in this situation so that things would have turned out differently? In the case of a parent divorce, probably not much. But even in some cases of you decide that you want to get you want some frozen yogurt, let's say. So you go to the frozen yogurt place and then they're closed. And it's, it's a Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, they should be open, but they're not. And you find out that they're closed on Tuesdays. It's like, oh my God, who closes in the middle of a week on a Tuesday? Is it your fault that they closed? No. Is it your fault so what could you have done? Well, you could have called. You could go online to see their hours. Is it your fault that you didn't? No, it's not your fault either. It just means that there's something that could have been done if we had been more proactive. And so it's too often we confuse that idea of I could have done something with I should have done something, and because I didn't do it, therefore it's my fault. The number of things in life that are our fault are I don't want to say they're limited, because sometimes there are a lot of people we know who just don't take enough responsibility, probably. And then there's some of you who take responsibility for everything. Like there's a forest fire there's an earthquake in Taiwan yesterday, if you guys saw that, 7.5. And there are some people who probably take so much responsibility, I should have done something to stop the earthquake. It's an extreme example, but you get what I'm saying. There are some people who will take responsibility for everything in life. And then there are people who take no responsibility at all for anything in life. And taking responsibility does not mean taking on blame. It just means getting things done. You find yourself in the middle of a situation, it's not your fault. A story I tell is I remember I think it was a first or second year teacher. I was over in the 700 building, and my old room, the windows were tinted, and it was room 707. And I was here later, and there was a kid walking. He was a football player. I just knew because he was carrying his stuff. And the campus was empty. It was way after school. Football practice was out, and so he was walking, and he stopped, and he turned and he picked up this piece of trash that was on the ground. It wasn't his trash. He actually walked back towards the trash can, put it in, and then turned and walked back to where he was going. Did he know anybody was watching? No, not that I can tell. Maybe there's someone down the hallway that way I didn't see, perhaps. But this is a person who, did he throw that trash on the ground? No. But he is a person who took a high level of responsibility for not for the trash, but for the cleanliness of his environment, the cleanliness of his campus? Could he have, picked up that trash and come to school the next day and gone and interviewed all 2,453 students to find out who threw the trash there? I suppose he could have. He also could have just sat there and said, I didn't do it. Yeah, but just because you didn't do it doesn't mean you don't have to live with it. There's something on the, people throw trash on the ground, let's say in your classroom, and the custodians only come through and sweep like once a week or so, once every, maybe twice a week. I think it's like once a week right up they're doing. It's like, why not just pick it up? Well, I didn't do it. Yeah, but here's the problem. You still have to live in the classroom with it. All the trash, all the garbage, all the stuff, all the writing, all the scribbling on the desk, all the gum underneath the desks. You still have to live in that environment. And it's not just your classroom, it's your house as well. It's your neighborhood as well. It's your family as well. It's your relationships as well. Literal trash, and then of course the metaphorical trash. So that's why I was asking what that it is. Because there's so much that we can not necessarily take the blame for things, but we can take responsibility for making things better. And that, of course, is one of the ways that we make the world better. Others? Yeah. Validation is a good word for that. Because we want to know that our identities are valid, that it's a good validate, it's a good identity to have. Are there bad identities to have? Ooh, emphatic nod. What's an example of a bad identity to have? And there's some I can think of right now.
Someone trying to pretend as if they're in a gang or something, just trying to fit in with them, even though it's not part of them, or it's not who they really are.
Yeah, I can think of a very famous example of someone who did that. It got them killed. Tupac. Tupac grew up, homeboy never even saw the hood, if you know Tupac's history. And that's how he got killed. He went and picked a fight with somebody in Las Vegas because he surrounded himself with real gangsters. And he was trying to prove himself to the real gangsters. So he runs over, picks a fight with somebody, and then that fight then spills out, and later on he gets killed a couple of hours later in Las Vegas. And then, of course, there's retaliation that leads to Biggie dying. Trying to be something that they weren't. Was it his fault he got killed? No. Was there some level of responsibility in it? Yeah, when you surround yourself with people like that, then you're surprised that's what you attract. Should he have died? No. But was it predictable? Of course, especially if you grew up around that stuff. Of course it's predictable. What other identities? Yeah. What's the problem with being a judgmental person?
You're hurting others.
Are you? So I guess there's a question of what's wrong with hurting other people?
Not right. It's not humane.
If you dress up as a dog and you identify as a dog, and you're a furry, am I doing you a favor by pretending that you're a dog? I'm indulging in your mental illness. Yeah. It's like, no, but you have an obligation to treat them that way. Okay, so if you're anorexic and you come in here and you're weighing like 60 pounds, am I under an obligation to tell you that you're beautiful because despite the fact that you have incredible health problems, am I under an obligation to tell you, you identify as beautiful because you weigh 60 pounds. You are beautiful then. And then when you die, am I then obligated to go to your funeral and say that you're alive? I can see that. So I have a standing rule that I don't make fun of people for things they can't control. I mean, you shouldn't have to. I mean, geez, look at people. They make all kinds of decisions and there's all kinds of things they can control. There's lots to make fun of with people for things they can control. If you feel the need to make fun of people. Yeah, especially for stuff like that people can't control, I can see that. Okay. So then, thinking of this then, so if there's, in most of our human relationships, that we spend a lot of our time then reassuring ourselves that these costumes, so the costumes therefore are the identities that we pretend to have. So the costume is an outfit that you wear. It's not what you actually are. You put on a thing to pretend to be something. So then I guess the question is, what's this interplay now between people who are like assuring each other, oh no, your costume looks great. Oh no, so does yours. Why would we do that? Why? Yeah, but why? In other words, there's some kind of a motive underneath it. Okay. Because if you don't accept other people, they might not accept you. And especially if you have something where, going back to what you're saying, that if there's a need to be validated. And I guess it's a good question about why is it that we would need to feel validated? Because there are things that, that like I was asking earlier about validation. Like, why is it like, if you walk through the world, I wonder how many of us actually feel a need for someone to say, you know what, your identity is valid. So it's good to be this thing. And how many of us just kind of walk through the world? And if you have a need to be validated, I guess it's a good question about what kind of an identity is it that we're demanding other people validate in us. And why is it that we feel a need to force people to validate us? And is it, are we treating them the same way that we're saying that we want to be treated, which is, I'm going to force you to validate me. Yeah, but my view is that it's not valid. It doesn't matter. I'm going to force you to validate me. Then you're not validating their views either. So these things get kind of sticky. Because if we're going to force people to validate views, however, if there's incentive though, that, like, for example, one thing I guess I suppose I might like about a furry is I don't have to worry about them judging me, right? What are they gonna say? You don't have enough hair, you got too much. Maybe we should be somewhere in the middle. I don't know. But we feel the need to oftentimes to not judge other people because we're also afraid of being judged. And so maybe it's a good idea to kind of develop ourselves and build ourselves up enough so that the judgments that are made, the judgments themselves are not valid. It's not that we're not valid, it's that the judgments themselves are not valid. I think I was talking to someone a little while ago, and and I was commenting that if you came in and you said, Scallon, you're an asshole, I could say, I don't think so, but I think that there's an argument to be made for it. I can see why somebody would say that. And I've told you before, I'm like coffee. I'm not for everybody. But if you came in here and you said, Scallon, you're stupid. Am I though? Is that really a valid criticism? I'm a lot of things. I could even see that I could be kind of a jerk. But stupid? So someone calling me that, that wouldn't bother me at all because the criticism itself is not valid. If you came in and said, Scallon, you do stupid stuff, oh yeah. But that wouldn't even be a criticism, that would just be a description of the case. But the things that really sting us are the criticisms that we know are actually valid and that they make us feel insecure about things. And so one of the reasons that we reassure each other is because we don't want to get called out ourselves about things. And so a lot of our relationships are that. Not encouraging people to be better, not encouraging people to be what they could become, but instead encouraging people to just encourage us, I guess is a way of thinking about it. Just tell me that I'm not going to criticize you, so because I'm not going to criticize you, are you going to criticize me? No, of course not, because as soon as we start criticizing back and forth, we're going to say some things that are true. And we're going to say some things that are hurtful, and that's why they're hurtful, oftentimes, because they're true. And there are things that are hurtful because they're not true, of course, absolutely, 100%. But there are also things that are hurtful because they're true, and so being able to distinguish between those things I guess that's wisdom. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?